familiar, yet full of surprises. Dolphins paying a visit. And bare islands. Polar ice meets a mini Sahara. All this is the Baltic Sea. It's not only sailing boats that frolic in the far-reaching estuaries, better known as fjords. It was back in February 2016 when Stefan Thomsen, a professional diver with the Flensburg Fire Brigade, had a very special encounter. Two large dolphins approach him. Normally, the up to 4-meter-long mammals live in the North Sea and the Atlantic. But in the following weeks, the dolphins regularly meet with Thomsen and his colleagues and encircle the men in a curious yet friendly manner. In the media, the two dolphins are given the names Selfie and Delfie. They are two young, not completely grown-up males, apparently on an expedition in the Flensburg fjord. Selfie and Delfie have been living in the Baltic Sea now for several months. They've also been sighted off the Swedish coast. There is more than enough fish for the dolphins to eat in the Baltic Sea, like herrings and cod. Thomsen has even been able to see how Selfie and Delfie whirl up silt to hunt for food undercover. In the forests along the northern Baltic, moose are not exactly a rarity. Nevertheless, in 2015, one of them hit the headlines in Finland. A moose cow died when it collided with a car. The consequence? The calf lost its mother. As an orphan, it would have no chance whatsoever. But it is brought to Markku Harju, who takes care of injured animals. He calls the moose calf Mervi, and Mervi soon gets to wander around Marcus's property as free as a bird. Before long, the two of them are inseparable. Bringing up moose babies with a bottle rarely works. It's difficult to obtain the correct milk. Mervi suffers from acute diarrhea. But the little fellow is tough. And the two of them are enjoying the joint summer break. Mervis seems to really like the reeds on the Baltic Sea beach. The story of the two friends moves the whole of Finland, and Mervi becomes a little star. For quite some time, it remains unclear whether the moose calf will make it. But in the spring of 2016, Markku takes this photo. A 45-minute boat ride to the west of Gotland is Stora Karlsö. The 2.5 square meter large island is, after Yellowstone, the world's oldest nature reserve. razorbills lay a solitary egg in a crevice as of the end of May. Over a month-long period, the parents alternate breeding duties. Per Arvid Berglund photographs and counts the razorbills on behalf of the Baltic Seabird Project. "7,500 pairs breed here. Stora Karlsö is the largest bird rock in the Baltic Sea. Apart from razorbills, 14,000 pairs of common guillemots inhabit the steep cliffs. Thanks to their powerful beaks, the razorbills are simple to distinguish from the guillemots with their sharp beaks. Both belong to the Elk birds and resemble the penguins of the southern hemisphere in looks and way of life, but can also fly. After roughly 4 weeks, the razorbill chicks have hatched in the rock crevices. They remain there for a further 2.5 weeks and enjoy the fish their parents catch for them. They live relatively safe and apart from one another. Not so with the guillemots. Up to 20 pairs often breed on an area the size of a bath towel. They lay their pear-shaped egg on the sheer rock. This sparks interest. The hooded crow conducts a foray. Protectively, the guillemot parents stand in front of their brood. But the crow simply tears them away. The neighbors support one another, but at one point, a guillemot rolls himself like an egg from the rock. The crow was too slow, and a gull benefits. The crow grabs the next adult bird from the cliff. And ends its foray successfully. The breeding birds are constantly attacked on the cliffs, and all the neighbors together attempt to shield the brood. In September, the elk rutting season begins in the forests and moors of the island. The mating calls of the elk cow acoustically signalize to the bull her readiness to mate. But her smell also implies the same. Often, the female scrapes off the bark of trees and marks them with a secretion. When flaming, the bull perceives the smell of her sexual hormones. He then lifts his upper lip to be able to smell her properly. In the roof of his mouth is a special olfactory organ. Timing is important for both sexes, as the elk cow is only fertile for 30 hours. The bull sniffs time and again, searching for the right moment. Should he miss it, the next possibility to mate would be 4 weeks later. But the cow is not ready. She still suckles the calf born to her this year. It will be weaned when the mother is pregnant again. Another bull brushes off the velvety tissue, hanging in bloody shreds from his antlers. When the rutting season begins, the headdress is ready. The velvet then perishes. To be able to produce so much bone substance each and every year is an enormous physical feat, especially as the antlers of a large bull can weigh 20 kilograms. The time is right the very next morning. At first, the elk cow runs off. But the bull refuses to leave her side. Until his advances prove successful at last. The actual mating takes but a few seconds, but will be repeated as a precaution. He is clearly too late. But there are many other cows at the rutting ground which one can smell and adhere to until they are ready and willing. South of the Kattegat, straits, islands and bays limit the exchange with the North Sea. The water here contains less salt, and this is where the inland sea of the Baltic actually begins. The hills are moraines, deposits from glaciers of the Ice Age. Cliffs, like those on the island of Fyn, are derogations of similar hills. They're not made of sand, but clay, which is much firmer. A perfect foundation for sand martins. Each spring, Europe's smallest species of tern returns from their African winter quarters. The birds check whether the old holes are still nest-worthy. And they have to find a new partner, as the sand martin's breeding community lasts but one summer. Hollowed out side by side in the steep face, the burrows are inaccessible for nest robbers. The arm-long ducts rise toward the end to prevent rain from entering them. The nesting recess at the end of the burrow must now be made just a little cozier. The martins use seaweed and sometimes a few feathers with which to upholster the nest before they begin to lay 5 or 6 eggs there. In better years, they even breed a second time in the loamy cliffs of the Pleistocene. Today, on the abraded islands, western curlews rest. And eider ducks breed. Surprisingly, many Swedes don't know of the attractive drake at all. The main reason being that they only come in spring for the mating season on the Huga coasts. Up to 10 males then compete for the approval of one female, who has an inconspicuous plumage. Quite the opposite of the males in their magnificent frocks, who, once successful, immediately leave the coast behind them again. But their cooing love calls can still be made out. The females lay their eggs in hollows in the scree of the skerries that they have upholstered with the finest downy feathers. These are acknowledged to keep the birds especially warm. 4 weeks later, and the chicks have hatched. Their mothers soon lead them out onto the sea. Often, several duck parents with their flocks of chicks form a giant kindergarten. The little ones can swim almost immediately after hatching, and dive too. And it's not that easy to remain underwater when the air in the feathers keeps tugging the bird upwards. But with a bit of practice, it gets better and better. From the very beginning, the youngsters have to search for their food themselves, whilst diving. Little fish, crabs and later mussels on the seabed, the staple diet of the eider ducks. The Western Pomerania Lagoon Area National Park also comprises the lagoons in the east. Each autumn, the lagoons attract tens of thousands of cranes from Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. Before their flight to Spain, they top up their fat depots for the long journey ahead. To prevent cranes from ravaging already cultivated fields, however, the farmers distribute maize and wheat on harvested areas as a distraction. In contrast to storks, crane families make the trip southwards together. The young birds can be recognized by their brown heads. They search for food during the day. Before it gets dark, the large birds leave for their sleeping quarters. Their thousand-fold trumpeting can be heard for miles around. They gather by the shallow waters of the lagoon. At the easternmost area of the peninsula is one of the most important resting places for cranes in Central Europe. Sometimes up to 40,000 birds meet here at one time, protected by the national park. The cranes spend the night on grassy islands or by standing in knee-high waters. This protects them from attacks by foxes and the like while they're asleep.